So we've built our little simple set. Now we're going to go ahead and create some basic furniture. So just so that we can start with a clean grid, I'm going to turn off the visibility on our wall geometry and also on our floor geometry, like that. And now I'm going to build us a simple table leg. And I'm going to start by creating a polygon primitive. That's up here. Create polygon primitives cube. And I'm going to go to the options box. And I'm going to go to edit, reset settings to make sure that we start with a clean slate. And I've got a table leg, so I want the height to be quite high. I'm going to say that's going to be 10 grid units. Everything up here is measured in grid units. And I want the width and the depth to be narrow. And I probably want about 5 divisions in the height. And then I'm going to go and click create. And there we go. We've got our leg, which is 10 grid units high with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 divisions. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to go to a multi-view. Don't forget that the spacebar is a very useful tool. You should get used to the spacebar. If I poise over the top view and hit space, wait a minute, what's happening here? There we go. It maximizes that view. If I then go over the perspective window and hit space, it maximizes that view like that. So what we want here is actually to go to panels, orthographic, side view, and that way we can see the whole table leg. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm gonna right click with my mouse. Actually, that wasn't what I wanted. I'm going to go into object mode and then back into component mode, and now right click. Why isn't it doing it? Let me select that. Maya can be funny. Sometimes you have to select things and reselect them in order to get the result that you want. Okay, so I've selected the object, I've right clicked, that's the menu I wanted, and I go to vertex here, which is what I want. I want the vertices, and the vertices are these little purple pink dots, and what I want to be able to do with those is manipulate them so that this table leg tapers a bit at the bottom. So that's what I'm going to do. So first of all, I'm going to grab the ones right at the bottom there. So they're now selected because they've gone yellow. And I'm going to go into the scale tool that's over here on this column, or I can also press R on my keyboard. It has the same effect. And now I want to scale these guys in, and I can use the scale Z there or the scale X there. But what I'm going to do is try and do both of them, and I can do that by holding down the Shift key with my left thumb and then middle mouse dragging over this to really scale that down, so I get a scale in both X and Z. Then I'm going to do the same thing with this guy here. Select these 4 vertices, hold down the Shift key with my left thumb, and then middle mouse drag those down, so we're getting a nice tapered leg. Select those ones, scale that down, select these ones, scale that just a little bit, and now we've got a tapering table leg. I'll just have a look at the design of it there. I think that probably wants to be a little bit narrower. I'm just really eyeballing this. If we were modeling really a table leg, we would be trying to match to reference, but just for now we're just trying to create some simple props. Okay, I'm now going to go back to object mode, that's this button up here, and go back to move, and I can now move this table around. I'm just going to hit Z to Z that out. If you're ever in any doubt about anything that you've ever done in Maya, just hit Z. That's your old friend, the undo button. And I'm now going to go to the panels orthographic top view, so I can see this from my top view. Imagine if this were an architectural plan, that's what you'd be looking at. And what we want to do is move that to a different place on the grid. we want to basically move 4 squares east and south, and I'm going to do that by holding down the X button or the X key on my keyboard and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So that's now 4 squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, east and south on my grid. And having done that, I am going to what I'm going to do first of all is go into the outliner, window, outliner, and this thing that we've created, pcube1, isn't a very helpful name, so I'm going to call that leg 1, like that. Enter. So now we know what it is. It's leg 1, and I'm going to duplicate it by the very simple method of going Control D, and that will now create leg 2. And so now, again, holding down the X key, I'm going to move that. What the X key does is it snaps it to the grid. I'm going to move that over like that so that it's on this side of the grid over here, and then I'm going to Control D that one to duplicate that, and again holding down the X key, snap it to the north side of the grid, then again Control D and holding down the X key and the left mouse button, snap it to that part of the grid. So now we have 4 table legs which are all in exactly the same place on the grid relative to one another. And if I now go to the window drop down menu and go to outliner, I can see I've got ground, wall, which are invisible, remember, they're still there. We can get them back just by turning the floor on. And then leg 1, leg 2, leg 3 and leg 4. So we've got 4 table legs. And actually what we probably want to do with those is move them, snap them to the grid so that they're sitting exactly underneath the grid. So I'm actually going to shift select them all, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then holding down the X key I'm going to move them down so that they snap to the grid as well. X is snap to grid, a very, very useful control to get the hang of. The grid is your friend, you want to use it as much as possible. So now these guys are lurking just below the grid, and now what we're going to do is we're going to create a cube to sit on top of the grid. And once again I'm going to go to create polygon primitives cube, except I'm going to go to reset, and or the options box I should say, and then I'm going to go edit reset settings, and what I want is a cube that is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 units wide and 9 units deep and 1 unit high. So I'm then going to go, actually I'm going to want some divisions in this. I don't know what the height and, well, let's probably say 9. It's probably going to be 9 width divisions and 9 depth divisions. And let's go create. Okay, good, and actually that was exactly right. That's exactly what we wanted. So now from the top view we can see that our tabletop exactly matches the width of the chair legs. Now the only problem is it is actually sitting on top of the chair leg, which we don't want. So what I'm going to have to do is move the pivot point of this tabletop. So I'm going to go to Insert, and then again holding down the X key, just actually I want to hold it down, the V key, I want to snap it to the vertices. V for vertices, so that's a vertex snap, and I want to snap that to the vertex at the bottom of the grid. And then again hit Insert, and now the pivot point on this tabletop has been moved to the bottom. So now I can now go back to the Move tool, that's pressing W on my keyboard, and I can, you see what we don't want to do is we don't want to just sort of randomly position that tabletop on top of the chairs, because no matter how well we eyeball it, we'll never get it quite right. But if I hold down X and I now move it up like that with my left mouse button, we now have the bottom of the table perfectly, basically we've snapped the bottom of the tabletop to the top of the grid, and we've snapped the top of these table legs to the bottom of the grid. So there should be now a perfect match between the tabletop and the table legs. So I'm now going to press 4 on my keyboard to go into wireframe mode, and that is looking pretty good. And now if I right click and go to vertex, those vertices should be all matching up perfectly. Okay, that's exactly right. Now the only problem is, well actually having done that, I'm now going to turn this into one unit, because if I go back to window and go to outliner, you'll see we've got leg 1, leg 2, leg 3, leg 4 and p cube 1, which was our tabletop. So I'm going to shift select all of those objects and I'm going to combine them into one piece of geometry. So there's no reason to have this be multiple bits and pieces. We want to combine it. So I'm going to go to mesh, combine, like that. And what that does is it creates a new object called polysurface 1. It hasn't forgotten about the legs and the tabletop. It's just created a new surface. But we don't need to keep all of this history now. So what I'm going to do is go to Edit, delete all by type history, and click on that there, and that will get rid of the history. So now we just have one object called polysurface 1, and I'm going to double click on that and I'm going to call that table. You always want to name things in the outliner. So now we've got our table. Now it's one piece of geometry. I'm just going to close out the outliner, and I'm now going to right click and go to vertex mode, and we've got way more information here in this table than we need. So what I'm going to do is start getting rid of some of it, and the easiest way for me to do that is actually, I don't want to be in vertex mode, I want to be in edge mode. So that's right click edge, and we're going to select some of these edge loops here and get rid of them. And the way I'm going to do that is by showing you a tool here called select edge loop tool. That's right there. And what that does is, if I double click on this edge loop here, that will select that edge loop. And if I then hold down the shift key and select this one, and then hold down the shift key and select that one, and then hold down the shift key and select that one, I can select all of these redundant edge loops that I don't need. So I'm just shift selecting them and then double clicking on them. So let's take the one out on all of the edge loops on this side as well, all of the ones that we don't need. Just double clicking, holding down the shift key while I double click so that everything is selected. And you'll see what we've done here on the left hand side. I've selected everything on the inside of this tabletop that we don't need. Now I'm going to go to, I can't just press delete, I have to go to edit mesh, delete edge, right there, edit mesh, delete edge, and that will get rid of all of those edges. And now you can see if I right click, actually I'll just go to the main tool there, that gets me out of the edge loop tool. If I now go right click and go to vertex, you can see that I've got many fewer vertices and it's much simpler. And if I hit 5 on my keyboard, we've got a nice simple tabletop. And now if I turn on my wall geometry and my floor, I can see, well, apart from the fact that it's in the wrong place, that's not looking too bad. So actually I think what I'm going to do at that point is I'm going to save my work and then we'll position the table in place in the next video. So I'm going to go to File, Edit, delete all by type history, and then go File, Save Scene As, Alex Simple Set version 2, Save As, and we're done.